This week, Morocco earthquake, Libya floods, Africa joins the G20, Thailand's Dino discovery, and some barking mad police.
Over here! Hey, listen up!
Newsy Pooloozi! Hello and welcome to Newsy Pooloozi, the news pool for curious kids and adults. I'm your host, Leela Shiv Shankar Prickett, and as ever, I'm joined by the Big Story Explainer and Sound Effects Finder, otherwise known as my mama.
Howdy, y'all.
This week, rescuers try to find survivors after nearly 3,000 people are killed by an earthquake in Morocco. Floods from Storm Daniel devastate Libya, with thousands dead and missing. Leaders of the world's biggest economy agreed to include the African Union into their G20 club. A new species of dinosaur is discovered in an area dubbed Thailand's Jurassic Park. And a US police officer goes to some barking mad extreme lengths to catch some car thieves. You'll have to hear it to believe it. Okay, let's dive on in. First up, it's the
Big News Story
Of the week.
The big story this week is the sad news of a massive earthquake that's rocked Morocco.
Where is Morocco, you might be wondering? Well, it's right at the top of the northwest corner of Africa.
Yes, and this 6.8 magnitude quake shook a rural area near the well-known popular tourist city of Marrakesh on Friday. Now, while the worst-hit area, some 45 miles south of the city in the Atlas Mountains, isn't super crowded, their mostly mud hut homes are very fragile, so they've toppled easily.
Another problem is that the worst destruction has been in isolated mountain areas that are difficult to access.
Yes, because this area is so remote, there are only a few roads in and out, many of which are blocked by falling rock. This makes the rescue operation much harder. Tragically, many people have been left digging through the rubble with their bare hands as they look for survivors. So far, nearly 3,000 people are dead, and those numbers are expected to rise as those who have survived aren't getting the medical help they need. In Marrakesh, residents are spending night after night sleeping on the streets.
Yeah, many are too scared to return to their homes for two reasons.
Well, one, of course, is emergency officials are still surveying the damage to know how badly homes and buildings are affected. And even when they don't look damaged, there can be serious structural problems. But also, there have been many aftershocks.
If you remember from the other stories we've done about earthquakes, aftershocks are smaller earthquakes that happen after the bigger one, and sometimes can cause further damage to already collapsing structures.
Scary stuff. But get this, many people from the city who survived the quake have jumped into their cars to head up to the mountains to try and help those who are stranded and devastated. So many people are doing this. There are traffic jams on the mountain roads where there are some reports of rocks that are still falling. But that's not stopping those desperate to help.
Yeah, we're sending Morocco lots of love and strength.
Staying in North Africa, but moving over to the east, past Algeria, is Libya, a country better known for its infamous, as in famous for bad reasons, now dead dictator Muammar Gaddafi. Well, sadly, this country is also facing a horrible natural disaster, flooding. Storm Daniel, which already battered Greece, Bulgaria, and Turkey last week, is causing severe damage in Libya, collapsing bridges, dams, and buildings. It's early in the rescue operation, but already more than 2,000 people are feared dead. What's just awful, though, is that some 6,000 people are still missing. Now for some news closer to home. As the G20 summit concluded here in India, let's cut across to our New Delhi political correspondent, Leela Shiv Shankar Prickett.
Yes, why, thank you. For this, I gotta head outside to report on something extraordinary. Can you hear it? Near silence. Usually India sounds like this. But over the last weekend in South Central Delhi, it was more like this. because the city was practically shut down to ensure the smooth running of the major economic summit of the G20, which, if you remember from last week's episode,
when we did a deep dive into the history of the summit.
Yep, there are officially how many countries in the world?
195.
But just 20, the G20 countries, are responsible for most of the world's economic output.
And when she says most, she means
85%, which kind of seems unfair, right?
Definitely. It's a real imbalance that only 20 countries should hold so much economic power.
Well, that was one of the goals of this G20, hosted by India, whose Prime Minister Narendra Modi had a motto of Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, Sabka Vishwas, which means together with all, development for all, and trust for all. In other words, be more inclusive.
And that's been the major highlight of this G20, getting everyone to agree on inviting the Africa Union into the club as a permanent member.
Hurrah! The leader of the AU, the African Union, calls this invite a game changer for Africa.
There was a worry that Russia's war in Ukraine would overshadow the summit, but there was even a joint statement that all nations agreed upon, calling for a peaceful resolution of the conflict, although Ukraine didn't think it was a strong enough criticism of Russia.
And by the way, not only was it quiet here in Delhi during the summit, but it rained. And did you know, in India, rain is considered auspicious or good luck when it happens during important ceremonies.
What's that? I'll tell you what. That's the halftime bell, which means it's time to hear what's making news around the rest of the world. Hold on tight. It's
Around the World in 80 Seconds.
Whoa, hold tight.
Kim Jong-un, leader of North Korea, takes a slow, bulletproof train to Russia for talks with President Vladimir Putin. Russia is said to want North Korea to sell it ammunitions for its war in Ukraine, while the repressive Asian country is said to want food aid. China sparks a debate as it drafts a new law banning speech and clothes that are, quote, detrimental to the spirit of Chinese people. The proposal is so vague, people aren't sure what outfits will be seen as a violation. But if the law comes into force, those found guilty could be fined or jailed. Florida teenage tennis pro Coco Gauff wins the U.S. Open for her first Grand Slam title at just 19 years old. Last year, U.S. tennis fans said goodbye to the great Serena Williams, who retired. While this year, they made clear they had a new superstar, welcoming Coco with constant applause. Big news in food as major snack maker Hostess Brands, yes, as in Twinkies and those powdered donuts, is bought by rival food giant J.M. Smucker for a sweet $5.6 billion. Smucker is famous for its fruit preserves and Jif peanut butter, so let's see if any P&J donuts will be cooked up. And what's a giraffe without spots called? Kipeke, of course. Well, the one born at a Tennessee zoo in the U.S. is called that anyway. After asking the public to vote on a name, the rare giraffe was christened Kipeke, which means unique in Swahili.
Well, thank you so much for that. Whippity wappity zippity zappity yap. Always making headlines elsewhere in the world, Mama.
My pleasure, Leela. It's been a busy week, so I'm glad to get it all in there. And now it's time for... It's the call of nature.
Nature.
Get on your safari suit
Or squeeze into your scuba gear.
and get ready to hop into a Jeep.
Or a submarine.
Submarine.
Because Mother Nature is calling.
Nature.
So it's not every day that a complete fossil of a new species of dinosaur is found, but that's what's happened recently in Thailand. And by the way, for those who might not know, a fossil is the preserved remains, trace, or impression, like of the bones, left by any once living thing from a past geological age.
And of course, it kind of helps that this is a tiny dinosaur. And when we say tiny, we mean really, really small.
For more on this, we're going to our very own dinosaur enthusiast and future paleontologist, who also happens to be half Thai as well, Mirabelle Power.
This story was made for you, Mirabelle. Take it away.
Hello, this is Dino Lover Mira with your dinosaur news update. This one's extra special to me because it's from Thailand and I'm half Thai. A lot of dinosaurs have been found in places like the western United States, Europe, and China. But recently, paleontologists have been finding new dinosaurs all over the globe. Researchers from Mahasadakham University have found one of the most complete dinosaur skeletons in Southeast Asia. This dinosaur, named Minimocursor punoensis, is only 60 centimeters tall, which is about 2 feet. That's about the size of a small dog. The researchers think that this fossil was from a juvenile and that the full-grown dinosaur would have reached 2 meters tall, or about 6 feet. Minimocursor punoensis means small runner from Punoi, and as of July this year, it was the world's newest discovered dinosaur species. Punoi Mountain, where the fossil was found, is sometimes called the Jurassic Park of Thailand. In Florida, I'm Mira Power, reporting for Newsy Pooloozi.
Thanks a lot for the dino news, Mirabelle.
And that area where the fossil was found is called the Jurassic Park of Thailand because so many fossils are found there. So watch this space.
Step right up.
Step right up.
Have a go at the lucky dip machine.
The lucky dip machine.
What's it going to be today, eh?
An oddball, no
An
doubt.
oddball, no doubt.
So you know the British have an expression, barking mad, as in really crazy, right?
Oh, are we doing another Slang Explain segment already?
Oh, that's not a bad idea for later, actually, to tell the story of how that phrase came about. But back to this week's Oddball.
Yes.
So this is a story that gives new meaning to the British phrase, barking mad, as in this is just out there crazy.
Okay.
Have a listen to this.
Oh, that sounds like an angry or excited dog.
Exactly, that was the idea. Only it's not at all a dog.
Oh.
Let me back up. Cue the music, Mama. Something dramatic, but silly. Once upon a time, just a few days ago, a group of naughty teenagers from Washington State in the US reportedly stole a car. Hearing about this, the police set out to find the car thieves, deploying something called stop sticks, also called spike strips, to try and slow the car down. It worked. When the car ran over the strap, it got 4 flat tires. But that didn't stop the robbers, not immediately anyway. The suspects continued driving and the deputies had to call off the pursuit. Until the stolen car was found empty, but oddly with the engine still running, near a wooded area. So deputies surrounded the area and began searching for the teens. And then an ingenious idea struck one officer.
Don't make us release our canine!
Act like a canine patrol.
Better stop!
After the deputy imitated a dog bark multiple times, the 4 teenagers came rushing out of a nearby creaky bed and surrendered, barking mad indeed.
Man, you can't make this stuff up, can you? That reminds me of another story recently in America. A driver in the state of Nebraska phoned police to report that he was nearly hit by a driver on the wrong side of the road. Except the driver who made the phone call had had way too much to drink, and it was he who was driving the wrong way down a highway.
Hey, that reminds me of a joke. So, a mother calls her son and husband, who are driving in a car, and said, "Hey, I just heard the news. Be careful. There's a crazy person driving down the highway the wrong direction." And then the father on the phone said, "Are you sure it's just one person? Everybody seems to be going the wrong way down."
I think I get that. Okay, all right. Ba-doom boom. And it's time to wrap up the podcast with the top 5 facts heard today. Fab fact number 1. More than 2,000 people are killed after a 6.8 magnitude earthquake shook Morocco. Where is Morocco? Northwest Africa.
Fab fact number 2.
Thousands of people are sleeping outside as they fear the effects of the aftershocks, which are smaller earthquakes that happen after the bigger one.
Fab fact number 3.
India has just hosted a successful G20 summit in which the African Union was invited to be a permanent member. What is the G20? A club of the world's richest economies.
Fab fact number 4.
There are officially 195 countries in the world, but the G20 countries alone are responsible for what percentage of the world's economic output? 85%.
Fab fact number 5.
A new dinosaur species is discovered in Thailand with the unearthing of the largest dinosaur fossil ever found in the Southeast Asian country. What's a fossil? The preserved remains, impression, or trace of any living thing from a past geological age. And don't forget, if you want to test yourself later on, then go to the Lucky Dip page of our website, newsypooloozi.com. That's Pooloozi. And take this quiz online in your own time.
And that almost brings us to the end of the episode of Newsy Pooloozi. But first,
as we're still playing catch up from the summer, we have some great reviews we'll be sharing with you over the next few weeks. This one is from a few months ago, so apologies to Caramel Cakes Love for our delay in reading this out, but thank you for taking the time to write.
I love this podcast so much. It's family friendly and I love to listen every night. I 100% suggest this podcast to any new listeners. Leela and Lindy make such a fun and great pair. Thank you so much for all you do.
Wow.
Thank you so much. That's so nice.
I love that. Thank you.
And if your review is not read right now, well, we'll be reading 1 or 2 reviews each and every week. So
stay tuned.
If you enjoyed this dip in the coolest pool of news and information, then smash that subscribe button on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Alexa, or wherever you get your podcasts.
While you're at it, give us a good rating, or better still, leave us a review. Go on, we'll read it out loud if you do.
Alright then, see you next week in the happy, splashy, giant Newsy Pooloozi.